Welcome, Misty. I am super thrilled to be talking to you.
I'm excited to be talking to you too, a little nervous.
I understand, and just to give everybody a little bit of background, we actually met through a friend, and the last time we met was celebrating her wedding, and we
Yes.
just started kind of chatting about what it is that you're doing and how you got here. And I thought you had such a cool story that I thought it would be really, really awesome to share it with listeners and more people.
Thank you.
So can you tell us so what it is that you're doing right now and you're focused on?
I'm a flight nurse for an emergency evacuation helicopter. So I work for a national company. And so I was working originally at one base, but the base closed down. So now I'm a what they call a float. And so I go to the different bases around South Carolina and fill in for different people as they're gone or sick or whatever. My main things are I transfer people from like one hospital to another hospital, and they're usually like ICU patients, have a lot going on with them, maybe on a ventilator. Um, and then also we do what's called scene calls where there may be a motor vehicle accident or something like that. And we go and pick the people up and take them to a hospital. And
Wow.
we're caring for them en route.
So those are pretty kind of, I don't know if severe is the right word, but pretty serious cases that need urgent
Yes.
attention.
Mhm.
Wow. So flight nurse, I think before we spoke, I didn't even know that such a thing existed.
A lot of people don't. And a lot of people, when I say flight nurse, they're like, they get this really quizzical look on their face, and they're just like, I can tell it's not coming together. And so I'll go into a little spill about what I actually do because not many people know about it. Actually a small little department of the healthcare community.
Yeah, I can totally see that because it would be like, what? A flight and a nurse? Because you usually think of nurses like hospitals or you go to the doctors, right? Or physician's
Yeah.
office.
And
I
this is like a combination of regular emergency services where if you called 911, you would get an ambulance that came to you. It's a combination of that and taking patients in between hospitals. So I work with a paramedic as my partner all the time. And then we have a pilot. So it's a three-person team. Um, but so we bring different strengths and weaknesses to the tables. And I think we complement each other in our work environment. It makes it really nice.
Yeah. No, it's kind of a small team, right? And you're under I mean it is it stressful?
Yeah, it can be stressful at times.
Yeah. How do
But
you deal with that and how do you make it work?
well, I think I really feel like everybody's meant to do certain things and that you come equipped with different personality traits and things like that. And so some of my strengths and stuff are in areas where it's difficult to cope for a lot of people, or something that might be stressful for a lot of people is something I can really focus in on and get the job done at that moment. And then later on, I can sit back and think about it if I need to like use any coping mechanisms then to deal with it. Like if I had to deal with some children or something like that in a bad situation.
Yeah. Wow. So how did you end up being a flight nurse?
Well, I didn't start out as a nurse at all. And my interesting, like, my guidance counselor in high school said, I'd done this military testing where they show you different your strengths and stuff like that. And I, they said you would be a good nurse, and I was like, no, I don't want to be a nurse. No. And
Wow.
so it went on from there, and I went to college and got a degree in interior architecture, and that was a 5-year degree. And then I got out of school and I started working and did that for a while. And then my husband at the time was sick. And so, in taking care of him, I was giving him IV antibiotics and taking care of his ports and doing stuff that nurses would do at an ICU. And so I was like kind of intrigued by it. And then we started thinking, what's something as far as like a job that would be good for me to do that could be very flexible as far as like benefits and time constraints and stuff like that, so that I could still take care of him while I was working full time to support us. And so we were talking about that, and we had come up with the idea of going back to nursing school. And about the same time, my sister, she called me and she said she had been in nursing school and changed careers and went to be a hairdresser, cosmetology. And so she said, I'm going back to school for nursing. And I said, when? And she's like, this semester. And I was like, well, I was just talking. And I think I want to go back too. And she was like, oh, that's great.
Oh
She's
my,
like, we can do this together. And so that's what we did.
that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
like, okay, so first the universe sends you, or God, or whatever you want to call it, the guidance counselor in high school. You should be a nurse. You're saying no, 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 no. Then you have like life puts you in a situation, right, where you kind of have to use your skills, and again, you're being pushed in that direction, and bam, your sister on top of it is also deciding to go back for her nursing degree. So like all the universe is pointing you in the direction.
Yes. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible, I would say.
And so we went back to school together. We did a year at UNC Charlotte. And then my husband and I moved down to South Carolina. And so I started a program down in South Carolina. My sister finished hers up in North Carolina. And I got out and I started originally working in the emergency department, and then switched from the emergency department to critical care transport. While I was working in the emergency department, I was recruited by the critical care transport team,
Mhm.
which is like a ground ambulance that transfers people back and forth in between hospitals. But it has the capability of caring for them, IVs, ventilators, that type of stuff, anything that they may need en route. And so I was really excited about that. So I did that for many, many years. And then I wanted to try something different. So I did case management for patients being discharged from the hospital, and like managing their medicines and making sure they had all the resources they needed and that kind of thing. And that was, there are people that are made to do that and they are very talented, but I am not one of them.
So you
And
tried
so
it, you didn't like it, like it wasn't
it
for
did,
you.
I was, yeah, my skills are not suited to that job.
Okay,
So
okay.
I went back and I started doing ground critical care transport again. And I was like, this is where I need to be. And then I had seen a couple positions open for nurses, flight nurses, with a new program that was starting up. And I thought, oh, I don't know. I'm not going to mess with that. And then I went to a continuing education thing that I like a friend of mine and I had decided would be really good. And it was a great opportunity. Networking, education. It was wonderful, better than I could have expected. And through that, I met the people that were starting the new base in my area. And
Wow.
they were like, you really should interview. And I was like, I don't know. And they said, yes, come interview. Just come try it out and see how you like it. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And so I ended up going for the interview and I got the job. So from that point on, it's been getting on 7 years now. I've
Mm.
been doing this flight nursing and I love it.
Wow. So it sounds from your story kind of that it's almost like this taking one step, putting one foot in front of the other, as that song goes. It's kind of like the doors kind of open
Open.
for
Yeah, they
you.
did.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that you were like, okay, I'm gonna go after this position.
Yeah. And I believe like that God has a purpose for everybody's life. And so different doors will open. Now, whether you make the right choices or not, I probably should have made the choice to be a nurse in the beginning, but he works to bring about that purpose in your life. And so that the different doors opening was just amazing to see. And you can only attribute it to something like that.
Yeah.
It just leaves me in awe.
That's amazing because like you said, you didn't even think about, it's not necessarily that you had that flight nursing on top of your mind, but would you say that it's like is that the most like appealing or the one like nursing position like kind of the one that you found to be the best fit for you from everything that you've tried?
Yeah, I think it's the best fit for me. It's the thing that excites me the most because there's constantly things to be learning and it's a challenging position. Um, we go for quarterly education training stuff, and
Mhm.
that's it can be very stressful, but it's really good because it challenges me to become a better nurse and to care for my patients in a better way, things that I don't know yet.
Mhm.
And so I like the challenging aspect of it.
It seems like you liked it because like emergency department, right? Critical care,
Mhm.
transportation, and flight nursing, all of them sound to be pretty,
High paced.
yeah, stressful environments, where you have to act quickly, right? There's
Mhm.
decisions and things that need to be um done and taken care of, without delays.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that cut and dry and get things done that need to be done and then move on to something else.
Hmm.
Um,
And what do you think that stands out about like because all of them seem to have those aspects, right? Emergency room, critical care. But what is it about flight nursing do you think that's like that is matching you the best or is the best fit for you?
I think because it's a combination of the ICU and the emergency department and a little bit of EMS, um, all rolled into one, and just never knowing what to expect and always looking forward to the day. And of course, riding in a helicopter, I mean, that's pretty fun.
I was curious, are there ever like slow days?
Yes, there are. There are
Okay.
days that you're like, oh my gosh, I wish this day would end. I'm like so bored. But there's other days that it's just like flies by.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to take it that way.
Yeah, so you have to, it's not like every day is this like super critical.
Yes. We
Otherwise,
have some down days, and then other days are super critical. We do a whole lot. And then other days we may have like one or two that are super critical, and others that are just, you know, um, easier transports because they don't have a lot of things going on.
it's so interesting. So what do you think it was like when the guidance counselor said you should be a nurse? What do you think was resistance or like kind of why weren't you receptive at the time? What were you thinking?
Um, I was all into going to design school and design and architecture, and my dad had done that type of thing, and he was a builder at the time. And so I was used to like seeing his houses that he built, and
Hmm.
it come up from the floor, from the ground up, and just all the changes. And I, that aspect of it, I think, was just exciting to me and challenging, doing different aspects that were required to complete a house.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was really focused on the design part of it because I knew like some designers and decorators. And I just found it fascinating at the time. In nursing, all I thought about was like my mom, like, had worked in a nursing home as a like as
Okay.
a director and stuff. And so all I could really think about was sick people at the hospital and like the nursing home. And I was like, that's not really like interesting.
Hmm. So that's interesting. You had family, influence or experience of something that you saw on both, you had seen on both sides
Mm-hmm.
from a little bit of nursing, maybe in a different setting, and also the building and the design.
Yeah.
Wow. So you decided to go kind of with what you saw closer to what your dad was doing. And how long were you in the design?
Probably about 10 years.
Okay, so you went to school and then worked for 5 years in it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I worked for my husband at the time was a builder as well. And
Okay.
so between him and my dad, they kept me pretty busy
Yeah. So you
doing
were
things.
surrounded by that business and
Yeah.
by that type of work. And of course that has big influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
On you, on your life. And then, so that's so interesting that life literally redirected you through what happened to your ex-husband.
Yeah. I was already prepared with like natural abilities and stuff to do the nursing. But then when my ex-husband got injured and I was taking care of him, that it became more of a necessity at that time
Mhm.
than a desire to be in the field. And then later on, it became a desire to be in the field in that um, type of work than it did a necessity.
How did it become a desire? Because did you enjoy the architecture or the design work?
I did, and I still do like stuff here and there. And like I built a house in 2009, and I designed it and built it from the ground up. My dad and I did that, and it was my own design, and it was very modern. I loved it. It was completely opposite of anything you'd find around here. Maybe something like in Barcelona or something like that. You would see something like that, but um, so I still like doing that. But the nursing, I think, is more challenging to me because I feel like um, I'm making a difference more so in people's lives. And because usually when I see people, they're it's the worst day of their life. And
Mhm.
so I try to do anything I can to make that just a little bit better.
Mhm.
And whether it be a smile or like holding their hand or like doing their medications and giving them blood, whatever it may be. But
Mhm.
sometimes the little things like the smile and the holding the hand are the things that mean the most.
Wow. Wow. So how do you mentally and like emotionally and overall prepare for that?
Well, I feel like I have like God gave me natural abilities to deal with
Hmm.
this type of environment. Because there are things that I've seen that I don't have that don't bother me like I've seen them bother other people.
Okay.
Um, and not that there was anything wrong with the other people that I was in that same situation with. They just it was hard for them to cope with.
Exactly.
And
For some people, it would be just so take them out,
yeah,
mentally. Emotionally.
and so I have a natural, like strong coping mechanism, I feel like, and or mechanisms. So I feel like that really helps me. But I'm really, it's really important to me to get a good night's sleep, rest, be prepared for work, have everything laid out,
Mhm.
um, eat good, and try to stay healthy. Um, just for my shift.
Yeah, like to be resourced so you can be your best, be at your.
Yes.
No, that makes sense. When you were talking about like being by people's, by their side at those critical moments and, the smile, it also you're almost like their angel by their side.
One of my pilots said he felt like he was the wings and we were the angels.
Ah,
And I thought that's a neat way to look at it.
that is so
Sometimes
beautiful.
I do feel like that people, I think in that situation, that is gives them a little bit of hope.
Of course. I mean, I think a lot you make a huge difference. And I wanted to ask you, so what do you feel is your purpose right now?
Right now, I feel like I'm doing what I'm called to do. I've been thinking, what comes after this though, because like as I age, I'm not going to be able to do this forever. I'm not going to be like 80-year-old climbing into the helicopter. I've already fallen out once.
Oh, no. You're funny.
So I've been thinking of other things that would challenge me, but in a different way, possibly.
Hmm. And is it that kind of like, in the past, obviously you've done the emergency, the critical care transportation, and, even the design before. Is it just like a natural kind of evolution? Because I do believe that we came here to grow and evolve. Nothing stays
Mhm.
stagnant and the same. So do you think like it's just part of your journey and personality that it's like, you do something and then we're always propelled to kind of what's next?
Yeah, yeah, I do feel like that's the way.
And do you have any ideas?
Um,
Or what are you thinking? What's brewing? Or you're still in
um,
the processing?
just other aspects in the medical field that might not be as like high stress, maybe working in an office environment or working with the coroner's office.
Hmm.
And that sounds like completely strange, I'm sure, because you're like, why would you want to work with dead people? But it's a part of like figuring out what's was wrong with them
Okay.
and putting that puzzle together.
Okay. Wow.
So
Wow. I didn't even know what you mean. Okay, okay. Now that you clarified, I didn't know what that term means, but
yeah, so it would be they have a coroner for every county, and every county whenever somebody is pronounced dead,
Okay.
they are the coroner looks over their stuff, their like paperwork and everything like that. If
Okay.
it seems like it is a case that was like murder or something like that, or a suicide, they'll look more into it and that's when they do the autopsies.
Okay.
And so that kind of, I'm just like starting to like learn about some of that stuff. And that's kind of interesting to me.
Wow. How did it come to you? Like, did you come across like some kind
There
of
were some
story?
there were some people I work with, and I had talked to them about, they had been in similar positions, and I talked to them about it, and I was like, well, I never really thought about that. That's not something that's like out in the forefront, career day, you want to be a coroner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they had told me about like their experiences and everything with it, and I thought it was interesting.
That is interesting. So it seems to me like you're very open. You kind of like, when it comes to your evolution of your work and career, you kind of like are open to this fluidity or kind of this co-creation process.
I feel like God has a purpose for me, and
Hmm.
that purpose, if I try to fight it,
Hmm.
it's just not going to turn out well for me. Whereas if I go with the flow and just go through the open doors when they come, and pay attention to the doors that are closing,
Hmm.
I do better off.
That's amazing. So, what would you tell somebody, right, who is looking like yearning, like inside, like they're kind of like gotten bored or is no longer connecting right with what they're doing, want something new? How can they sharpen that antenna? Because I mean, we tend to think, okay, we have to apply, we have to like these jobs will come through people or this will come through effort, applying
Mhm.
to jobs, interviewing, making it happen, controlling it, knowing exactly how it will turn out, suffering. Like what would you be your advice to kind of sharpen that antenna, right, to get better guidance in the.
Um, to just like have conversations with people about, what they do, just asking questions. And then I advise a lot of like students that come through and want to possibly go into the field. And so we'll do what's called a ride along program, and they'll ride along with us for the day
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of get an idea of what we do. And so if you can do some kind of job shadowing
Mm-hmm.
for to just, because you never know if you're going to like that environment or not. Because like when I was in nursing school, I thought, oh, I'm going to be an operating room nurse. And I got to my operating room rotation, and I'm not meant to be an operating room nurse.
Mm-hmm.
They, that is just not what God planned for me to be. He didn't give me those talents. He gave me other talents. And so then it was figuring out what I needed to do with those talents that I was already given.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I
then
love. Go ahead.
constantly like trying to grow and do conferences and continuing education. Um, step out a little of your box and see what's out there. There could be something completely that you hadn't thought of that might be interesting to you.
Even kind of like to your example within your field of work, right? Within nursing, there are all these things that you've tried. So within any kind of field, just like researching more, what kind of variety of opportunities and positions,
Right.
talking to people. And I love your story also of trial. Like you tried things, like you said, you did something, and you didn't like it, and you kind of, but including that operation nurse, but you sometimes don't know unless you try.
Right. And until you're in that position and you're like,
Mhm.
um, in that environment, doing that work, you don't know. And so that's why the job shadowing and asking as many questions as possible is so good. And if you can get somebody in it, you think, like when I think of it, I think of job shadowing like kids in high school, going out and go into their parents' work and shadowing them and stuff like that for career days. But as adults, we can do it too.
Mhm.
And if you have a friend and their job seems interesting, see if you could just tag along for the day and just kind of see what it's like.
I like
It
that.
might be something that you end up going into.
Yeah. No, I love that. And would you say when you were doing design, like you liked it, right? Like, was it when you compare, right? Was it equally as fulfilling for you, or kind of how would you describe? Was there any difference between you doing now being in nursing versus?
It's like black and white kind of thing. The design is black, the nursing is white. It's just they're so opposite, but they do have characteristics that are the same that I think is why I did well in both because um I I did have good marks in school and stuff like that. And I did well in my internships
Mhm.
and I did well outside. And people are all the time like coming to my house and like talking about, and I usually do doing something different that is not like normal. But I always get compliments about it. And get people ask me if I can like give them some information, give them some ideas or something like that to do. And so I will. But the nursing, it has that detail oriented type thing about it. Um, but I feel like it's more a part of my soul than the design was. The
Mhm.
design, it's still part there, but this is just a bigger piece of my soul
Mhm.
that I'm meant to be using.
That's amazing. I mean, what an awesome story and like incredible journey of something like two different things, like two
Yeah,
different
completely
careers.
opposite things.
Yeah, and that you in ways, you enjoy them both, that this is kind of just, stepping into more impact and more
Hmm.
making a difference, that you feel more aligned with. It's kind of, you know what it reminds me? I interviewed Jeff Brown. He's an author of several books, and he was, before becoming an author, he was doing all these different jobs, to provide for himself. But like he was comparing the purpose to like if you're on a highway, like at different times we take different exits,
Hmm.
and that at different stages in our lives, we'll have different purposes and expressions of our purpose.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like I've had multiple different lives within this one lifetime. Just all the changes that have come about.
Yeah.
Um, so the exit thing, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing? I think sometimes people get scared or apprehensive when they've had like 10 years or something, education and experience in one career, that there's so much invested, right? And they already built up to a certain level of income, seniority, and it can be scary and kind of shaky to make a pivot, kind
Yeah.
of start from scratch, what would you say to that?
Um, Mine was born out of necessity. Um, I don't know if down the road it might have been something that was a choice, but at the time, going into nursing was a necessity.
Hmm.
But I also remember when I changed and went from emergency department and worked in the ICU, I felt like a fish out of water. It was like I had just gone to nursing school and I had gotten out and I didn't know anything. And I'd come from an emergency department that I felt comfortable in. I felt comfortable like taking orders and doing procedures and stuff like that to an environment that I was not comfortable at all. And it's just allowing yourself to grow and, you know, um, you're going to fail. I've always heard, the people that fail the most are the people that are the most like successful. And as somebody that's obsessive compulsive and does not a perfectionist and does not want to fail, I hate hearing that, but sometimes that's what needs to happen to get us on the right track.
Mm, I love that. And what do you think keeps driving you for the change, to keep growing, to keep putting yourself in these uncomfortable new situations?
I really feel like it's God
Yeah, yeah.
in my life, yes. But my family, I also have really close ties. I have a big family, and my husband has a big family, and we have close ties with them. And so they're very supportive whenever I'm trying something new or want to do something that seems a little outside the box. They're always very supportive of it. But I think once I feel like I've grown in an area and I don't want to get stagnant, I don't want to get to a place that I become unhelpful just because I know too much,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Um, because I think you can come to a place where you think you know it all. You really don't, but you think you do. And then you can be unhelpful to the people that are around you and that are working with you. And so, um, if I start getting to that feeling, I think it's time for me to change and do something else.
Okay, like complacent, like if
Yes.
in it all. Okay. If you had to do it all over again, would you change anything?
No, I probably wouldn't. I would keep it the same. Just the experiences, the experiences in design prepared me for experiences in nursing. Um, and that sounds crazy that something in the design world would like prepare you for nursing,
So
but
interesting.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it prepared me to like when I look at a blueprint and design and I'm focusing on the details and the measurements and getting everything just right, that translates into nursing where I'm focusing on the medications and the dosages and getting it just right um, for that particular patient. So I think there was like there's a connection between the two, but it's also a growth process.
That's so interesting, that kind of your natural abilities, natural tendencies can be applied in such diverse
Mm-hmm.
and different fields. And I think that's the beauty of it, and sometimes makes it kind of confusing or challenging to pick, okay, what's the right thing for me?
Yeah, and I still think that. What am I going to do when I grow up? I don't know.
You still have that feeling?
I still have that feeling. Yes. What am I going to do when I grow up? I don't know.
So it's normalized. Maybe we all have it inside of us and it's just normal. Like it's part of human nature.
Yeah,
And you love what you do.
I do love what I do, but I also am like realistic about it. I'm not going to be able to do this job for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be able to retire from this job. There's going to be something else that's going to need to happen and I'm going to need to be involved in.
Mhm.
So, and I may go back into design. I don't know.
So
We'll
do you
just see.
pray? Do you pray
Yes.
kind of for God to to lead you, to guide you, to show you the way, or kind of where how do you internally kind of prepare?
I do pray, and I just pray for guidance. And you know, that I get as far as like guidance in many different like things. It may be a devotion that I do where I've read some scripture and read a little excerpt that somebody's written about that scripture. So I'm like thinking about things in a different way, but it may be particularly pertinent to me that day because something I'm facing that day. Um, and then going to church and um, fellowshipping with other people around you because you learn so much, and it's you can give and you get so much more out of it than if you're like constantly taking. And I feel like, if you're giving, you're going to get so much in return. And it's just, it'll be amazing to you. That's how it's been for me. Just going on mission trips and stuff like that to other countries and we did some medical mission trips and some building mission trips. And I felt like I came out of it, like I had gotten so much more out of it than I had like given into it.
Wow, that is amazing. That is beautiful because I think sometimes we can get into this very small, like, me, what's in it for me? What, how much can I get out of, something, what will this job, what will this situation, what can this person give me? So we become like takers, takers, takers. But I feel
Mm-hmm.
like what you just described and what you shared about your story, that you have walked a path of blessings, right? Of also
Mm-hmm.
doors opening and the guidance coming to you because you've been a giver.
And I think it's naturally, I haven't been a giver in all aspects of my life. There are some like
We're all human.
times in my life where I wasn't. I was more of the taker. But it's just it I in growing and learning about the differences between giving and taking and how much it affects you. I definitely and I haven't had an easy life. It's not like everything's been given to me. There I've worked hard for what I have. I have ADHD, and so for me, school was just horrible, and I didn't want to go at all. Um, and it got better when I got to college because I could it was short classroom times and I could like on my own, and it was design stuff. So that was more hands-on type stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but I still like dealt with it in my adult life and didn't start receiving treatment with it for that because I didn't know I just figured that was me. That was just like the way I was made up. And so I had developed these different crutches to like help me through my like weaknesses and stuff like that. Um, and then to find out that other people were dealing with this too, it
Mhm.
was it was eye opening.
Yeah, yeah, many people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I
So
feel like,
it's not been easy. It's there, guidance from God has been like the biggest thing because I don't know what I'm going to do next. And I know He does. So,
and do you connect with it every week, every day, like the devotion and the service and like the prayers?
yeah, I do prayers and devotion every day.
Mm.
Um,
And read
and
also the inspirational, like the text and stuff.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that whatever practice, works, that it can make a huge difference to bring that perspective, that openness, and um open our heart, our mind, everything, by immersing ourselves every day in and then somehow it comes miraculously comes like that you read exactly what you needed for that day, right? And it
Yeah.
helps you to put it in a different, in a bigger, in a wider context where you see the bigger meaning, where you're open to these synchronicities and more open versus where you would be more kind of in your smaller self or smaller mind.
Yeah. Being open is so like beneficial in so many ways. It's beneficial for you as a person because then you learn about different aspects of yourself that you may not have realized. And you learn things that maybe you want to be interested in. You may want to like try that you wouldn't have thought of. Being open to like other people's religions and like how they were brought up and how they think and how they believe and is I think important because we all are different and we all have something to give.
Mhm. And you get ideas. I think you get like the
Mm-hmm.
um like I've had times when, and even through your journey, where answers come and opportunities come through conversations, like you said, trying things, hearing about things from other people, and or opportunities to try things that you never even thought about.
Yeah.
Like we're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Is there anything about your journey that I didn't ask that you'd like to share?
Um, I can't think of anything.
And what do you say has been, the hardest? Like you said, of course, there have been, challenges and everything. What would you say on your journey would have been some of the, or one of the hardest moments, and how did it make a difference in your journey?
Going from being an expert in one field to being a novice in another field, I think that was the hardest thing for me. Knowing like what kind of resources I had and how to fix things, going to I don't know how to fix anything and I need other people to help me
Mm,
fix the problems that I've made.
mm,
Um, and just being open to that and being willing to grow and become what you're meant to be. Be willing to try new things, be willing to listen to different people's viewpoints.
mm. Did that bring up also like fear or like a lot of vulnerability and
Yeah, you have to be in a sense vulnerable a lot of times, which is something I fight with because I don't want anybody to know I'm vulnerable because that's like a weak spot, and you're constantly trying to defend yourself from like anything that could hurt you. But I think you have to be a little bit vulnerable and open and transparent with people because there may be something in your life that will be just what they need to hear,
Mhm.
just as you may say something to me today and it may seem insignificant to you, but to me it like made all the difference and it just like was that thing that I was looking for that day.
Mm,
And we have to be open and vulnerable to doing that type of thing. And it is very scary. um, but that's never been one of my things. I've always tried to like push my boundaries, and even like it doing stuff outside, like rock climbing and snorkeling, scuba diving, all that. I'm always like trying to push my boundaries and try something new. So the fear, there's that plays into it a part because you've got to have some fear, I think, but not letting it overcome you
Wow, you're very
and take control.
courageous. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're very adventurous and courageous. Like even the activities, rock climbing, that you mentioned, that's amazing. That's awesome. So something is planted in you. Something is driving.
Yes. I feel like I have a motor in me driving me to do stuff.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I'm glad you're listening to
Me
it.
too.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Misty. It's so awesome to connect with you, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.